sorry.
Welcome to the Clark Township Planning Board meeting, Thursday, November 7th, 2024. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by mailing the annual scheduled meetings to the Star Ledger, Union County Local Source, Union County Hawk, and Tappan Clark, by posting such annual meeting schedule on the bulletin board in Town Hall reserved for such announcements, and by proper filing of said notice with the Township Clerk. Formal action may be taken at this meeting. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must always be maintained. I'll take attendance. Mayor Bonacorso? Here. Mr. Ulrich?
Here.
Mr. Minetti? Mr. Koch?
Here.
Mr. Triola? Mr. Altman? Mr. Jacobson? Mr. Steinberg?
Here.
Mr. Brocato? Mr. Orancio?
Here.
Mr. Cruz?
Here.
Mr. O'Connor?
Here.
Mr. Reiki, no. Okay, can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes from the September 5th meeting? Yes. Any comments, changes? If not, I'd like a motion to approve.
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Joe. All correspondence is open to the public for viewing at Town Hall. As such, I'd like a motion to dispense with the reading of all correspondence.
Motion.
Thank you, Lance.
Second.
Thank you, Joe. Clark Reservoir Improvement Presentation. Before we start, I'd like to have the counselor give us a brief overview of the proceedings we're about to hear.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tonight, the Union County is here as for a courtesy review of their proposed improvements to the Clark Reservoir. Under the form of government that the United States employs, the United States government is not responsible to any of the lower tiers of government. Likewise, the states are not responsible to any of the lower tiers of government, and likewise, the counties are not responsible to the lower tiers of government. So while Union County is not bound by the laws and regulations of the township, they're here before to present a courtesy review of their intention to make improvements at the reservoir. And within that context, this is not an application that you will be hearing. You are not being asked to take any formal action tonight, but this is for informational purposes and for the county to hear any concerns that you may have or questions regarding the proposal. So with that background, you can call upon the applicant or the county.
Thank you, Counselor, for the overview. Union County, please come forward.
Good evening, Chairman, Mayor, board members. My name is Bruce Pargan. I'm the Union County Council, and I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to present our site plan proposal to you by way of statutory courtesy review. As your council said, the county does not need to obtain formal site plan approval from the board, but we're here to provide the board members the opportunity to see, review, and provide your comments on this project. As I presume you are aware, this project has gone through a number of changes since it was presented to the public in this very same room some months ago. And the current plan will also be the subject of a change of use public hearing as mandated by Green Acres regulations on Tuesday, November 26, 2024, again back in this room, at which time the public will have an opportunity to further comment and ask questions. The formal presentation tonight will be by the county's project engineers, Mike McClelland and Pete Bendrowski from CME Associates, Also attending tonight is Union County Manager Ed Oatman. Unfortunately, our Parks Department Director, who has been at all of these meetings, is sick in bed, and so she'll be unable to attend. This time, I'd like to turn the podium over to Mike and Pete to make the formal presentation. Thank you.
Not working.
There we go. Our co-project manager here tonight, so I'm going to ask Pete to go through the specifics of the application, what it is we're proposing at this time. Pete, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Pete Benarski. I'm a professional engineer and project manager for CME Associates. Before I get into the scope of the project, I just want to go over the area and kind of the nomenclature I'll be using. So to start off, we have the Clark Reservoir, which is separated into 4 bodies of water. The first body is here, the headwaters. So this is from the Robinson Branch to Featherbed Lane. Next is the West Lake, which is from Featherbed Lane to Raritan Road. Following that is the Central Lake, which is Raritan Road to the Garden State Parkway. And lastly, we have the East Lake, which is from the Garden State Parkway to Madison Hill Road. The scope of improvements that I'll be touching on today involve the dredging improvements, the access to water and water recreation activity improvements, the boat storage facility improvement, the trail improvements, and then our stormwater management improvements. So first, with the dredging improvements consist of dredging of the headwaters, the West Lake, and the Central Lake. In total, there's about 155,000 cubic yards of sediment that will be removed. I'll quickly kind of explain the dredging process. The first step is that the fish will be collected within those 3 bodies of water and then transported to downstream, most likely the East Lake. Following that, the contractor will be responsible to propose and maintain a low-flow diversion channel. So that will involve any flow from the Robinson Branch traveling through these 3 lakes down to the East Lake. So that will be maintained at all time during construction. Following that, the 3 lakes will be lowered pretty much to the complete hard bottom, so completely drained. Once that happens, the contractor will utilize heavy machinery and equipment to enter the lake and to begin moving the dirt around. The dirt will most likely be moved to a dewatering site located somewhere within the project. From that site, the sediment will have to kind of dry out a little bit before it can be moved to an off-site facility. So once the material is dried, contractor will utilize an access road. So for the Central Lake, it's mostly going to follow the same footprint we have for this access road. The West Lake, there'll be a small access road here. And for the headwaters, there's an existing asphalt boat ramp that will be utilized. So the contractor will utilize most likely dump trucks to then transport that sediment and dispose of it at an off-site facility. Once all the sediment is removed, the lake will be refilled, and that will complete the dredging process. Next, I'll touch base on kind of the recreational water activities, and access to the water. So first, I will start with the East Lake. There's a small boat ramp proposed off of Wendell Place. Next to the boat ramp will be a small boardwalk with a gangway and then a floating dock loading pier. And there's also a very small parking lot associated with that boat ramp as well. Moving to the Central Lake, that kind of takes place in this area here. There's a second boat ramp accessing here from the parking lot that will also contain a small boardwalk, aluminum gangway, and a floating loading dock. Directly to the east of that is this fishing pier that will extend approximately 200 feet out into the water, which can be utilized, fishing, bird watching, sightseeing. And directly east of that is a floating dock that will be utilized to launch kayaks and other small boats. There'll be an ADA kayak launch proposed, as well as a regular kayak launch, and that will be accessed by a series of gangways. And then there's this center pier in the middle there that we anticipate being utilized to store kayaks or any small boats. Next is the proposed boat storage facility that is located right here on the Central Lake. So this is a two-story building, approximately 8,600 square feet. The second story on that is mostly going to consist of public bathrooms, kind of a great room with a gas-powered fireplace. There'll be kind of office/recreation rooms next to that. And on the first floor, there'll also be public bathrooms. There'll be a ticket and bait shop. There'll be storage for the boats and kayaks that will be stored there during the off-season. Storage room for maintenance equipment, and there's also be a storage facility for emergency police vehicle that will be stored during the off-season. On the exterior, there will be a covered patio on the second floor that overlooks the Central Lake. And on the first floor, there'll be a stamped concrete patio with a masonry stone seating wall surrounding it and some picnic tables placed throughout. Next, I'll be talking about the trail improvements. So the trail improvements now only consist around the Central Lake. So starting with the north side, the trail runs from Raritan Road, through the Little League fields, down adjacent to the high school, and then through the DPW facility. So this will be an 8-foot wide aggregate walkway trail. There's three small pedestrian bridges throughout. One's located here, and two more here and here. Those are roughly 30 to 50 foot in span. And then there's a larger 180-foot pedestrian bridge located here. Also along this walkway, there'll be a retaining wall close to the DPW facility. So closer to this pedestrian bridge in the parkway, that'll be utilized more for grading for the wall. So that'll be roughly 10 to 15 foot high. And then once you get to the DPW yard, it'll be a double-sided wall, approximately 10 feet high, to kind of serve as a separation from the yard to the walkway. To kind of complete the loop of the trail, residents will be able to walk down Raritan Road to Madison Hill. That connects back to the south trail system. The north trail is roughly 2/3 of a mile in length. The south trail system is mostly, again, an 8-foot wide aggregate trail. It's about a mile in length once you add up the loops. So you have two connection paths off of Madison Hill Road, and then you just kind of loop around this whole property. There's one box culvert that will be used to cross a small ditch, and then it will connect to the north trail via this 700-foot long pedestrian bridge that will run parallel to the parkway. Lastly, we have the stormwater management basin that is located here. It's roughly 30,000 square feet. It will be constructed by a gabion retaining wall on the inside. Depth will vary from 2 feet to 6 feet. And on the outside, it'll be sloped back to existing grade on a 3-on-1 slope with a berm, and there'll be a 4-foot high fence surrounding the perimeter of that. That pretty much concludes the scope, but we'd be willing to answer any questions as well.
There's no building by the headwaters anymore?
Correct, no building by the headwaters.
How large boats are you anticipating? You kept saying the kayaks could be dropped off here. You have a boat ramp. What type size of boat are you anticipating?
There's the conservation easement with NJCF prohibits any gas-powered or fossil fuel-powered boats. So that rules out pretty much majority of boats. There's still an option for electric boats that can be utilized, but we anticipate mostly this being used for kayaks, rowboats, paddleboards, things of that nature.
Do you know if the county plans to have renting boats there like they do at Warnanko Park?
As of now, the plan is to have boat rentals.
Okay. I see that they're cutting through the Little League complex between the Pee Wee and the minor league field. Is there any chance, it gets pretty busy in the springtime, as you can imagine. Is there any way that you couldn't have kept it closer to the Central Lake?
The original concept had it hugging back here. Problem was the outfield almost extends pretty much 10 feet from the banks of the reservoir. So it became a grading issue and then a DEP issue, having the path located there. So we made the decision to kind of swing it around. It'll hug kind of the back side of that parking lot. We also proposed for that portion of the trail to be asphalt, so it'll kind of stand out from the parking lot. So that's how we reached that decision.
Plus, if I can, Mr. Chairman, forgive me.
And with this, you said there's a drainage basin here. You're no longer taking area of the Oak Ridge Park for,
No, that has been removed.
that's been removed? Anyone else on the board have questions, comments? If not,
Well, Mr. Chair, the planner did submit a letter,
okay.
and the applicant has that letter, the county has that letter. If we could just address those issues, that would.
We are prepared to do that, so we're happy to. Okay. Come on over here, Pete. So first comment that he had was what the park hours were, and the question was dawn to dusk, and the answer is yes. Okay. And the next question was on the buffer. The 50-foot was maintained. There's an area, I'm going to ask Pete to point to it on the plan, where we provided access to the county's emergency boating facility. It comes out of the base of the boat storage building, and in order to get it over to where the boat ramp is, we had to get a little closer with the walkway to that back corner. That walkway is going to be made out of grass pavers, so it's essentially going to be a grass area. You won't even notice it, but we can drive the boat trailer across it, and it'll be heavily vegetated to maintain that promise of the 50-foot buffer. Next question was long-range plans relative to the site, and he wonders whether or not, since there's such large green space remaining, does the county have any long-range plans for these areas? And the answer is none at this time. Item D, dredging. To what extent will dredging occur of the lakes, and how often is dredging anticipated to occur to maintain water levels? The answer is the way that the permitting is required is you excavate the dredging to hard bottom of the lake. So if you take a look at our plans, we have taken elevations and done soundings inside the lake to determine what the old hard bottom was. So we take the silt from that hard bottom, and that's what we're removing. So that there's really no proposal to lower that hard bottom. It would not be something permitted by the DEP. The depth will vary between 2 foot to 10 foot, depending on which lake it is, and that's how the intent is to do. With regard to future dredging, that's unknown at this time. As you know, this reservoir has been like this for some time. I can tell you, I'm almost 40, 50 years in the area. I don't think it's been dredged since then, and the cost to do this is obviously very significant. Next question you had was trail connections. Is it the intent of the trail network to connect with nearby community facilities, the high school, Clark Library, Clark Little League, et cetera? The answer is none, no connections at this time. Next question is on lighting. Please describe the extent to which illumination will be provided and proposed within the parking lots and trail network. We have a lighting proposed. There's approximately 13 lights only in the areas of the parking lots only, and the foot candles are somewhere between 0.25 to 1.0, and they're going to be activated only when necessary. Next question, will security alert system be placed on site similar to what is in place at Union County College? I believe that the reference is towards a call box. There are no call boxes proposed at the park in this time. Item H, boat access. What type of boat restrictions will be in place regarding the size and type of power restrictions? As Pete indicated, no fossil fuel boats are permitted by the NJCF, and the county does not permit those either. We're pretty much, as Pete indicated, kayaks, canoes, and rowboats. Okay. Number I, events. What type of events does the county anticipate the facility now? Fishing events, running events. Right now, the answer is it's unknown at this time. J, on the Rossi, essentially the county has a Rossi on the property at this point, and there's no encroachments or diversions proposed. Item K, what does the county stand with, where does the county stand with the NJDP regarding permitting these improvements? Permits, as you know, for land use and wetlands are submitted and are pending. And the last item, the plan, what do the light black boxed areas sporadically placed around the trail network and the pedestrian bridge represent? And that's basically the pedestrian bridges. There's, as Pete said, 4 or 5 of them. That's essentially what that detail is. Certainly, we're available for any other questions that you have.
Yeah, excuse me, I have one, please. The season for boating, is it going to be 12 months a year, 10 months a year, no winter? Okay. Etched in stone, are you still going to debate on that?
That's where we're leaning. I mean, the exact, like some of the details, like in the questions, fence and stuff, the park is a couple of years away from usually open.
No, I understand, Mr. Oatman. I'm just trying to say, like Memorial Day to Labor Day is pretty good, but like the kind of weather we're having now, I'm sure in October.
Yeah, right.
But, I was just wondering for winter months. And would the county ever consider ice skating if the weather ever got cold enough to do that? Just wondering. Okay. Well, I grew up at 25 Victoria, and years ago we used to always skate out there when we were kids, but it got like thick back then. Now I haven't seen it even freeze so much. But that was just an outside question. It has nothing to really do with this, but thank you. Thank you.
Do you have a time frame for going out to bid, construction length?
We are advertised in the newspaper for bids next week, and we plan to award by the end of the year and hopefully have construction starting and commencing in the spring of 2025.
All right. If anyone from the public would like to come forward and ask any questions or comments, please come forward, state your name and your address.
Hi, Diana Gonzalez, 140 Stemmer. So I went to the first commissioner meeting on this probably about 6 months ago. I met another resident there, and then we started talking to other residents, and we formed the Clark Reservoir Committee. So some of the folks that you see here are just a subset of the committee, and really we're representing residents' interests. Initially, we put together a petition that got about 1,500 signatures, and we've had some success in scaling back from the original design. I do want to thank the mayor, town council, the county, had conversations with CME. They've been very receptive to our feedback. We had put together a counter proposal, and one of the original requests in the counter proposal is still there, and that is the boat ramp at the East Lake in the Wendell community. We argued at the time that it was unnecessary because 500 yards away you would have a boat ramp at the Center Lake, and that the East Lake is accessible from the Center Lake. We learned around August that that ramp was remaining because the New Jersey Turnpike Authority, who also governs the Parkway, would not allow travel under the Parkway Bridge. So the current status is that the county read a statement at the last commissioner meeting indicating that the NJTA is holding the county fully and entirely responsible for the Parkway Bridge in Clark, not just the underneath passage, but the entire structure above and below. And while the county indicated they're willing to eliminate the second boat launch in the Wendell community, at this time they cannot because of the New Jersey Transit Authority's position. So here's some of the details, right? The county's attempting to limit their liability by placing 2 boat ramps, one on each side of the parkway, and signs that state no boating is permitted, but there will not be any barrier, as I understand it. So there's nothing to actually stop individuals from zigzagging under the bridge. In fact, I think that increases the risk because now you have people on both sides that are going to want to access the other lake, right? The residents of the Wendell community do not wish to have the pass-through traffic And some of the largest old-growth tree canopy along the reservoir is in that area. That would be destroyed for the parking lot and the boat launch. Some of the risks. The roads in that neighborhood, if you're familiar, are quite narrow. Cars have to pull to the side now to allow other cars to pass. There's no sidewalks, and there are many small children in that neighborhood. In fact, there's a special needs child who lives in that community. There's an autistic child sign in the neighborhood if you go there. The lot and the boat launch would be tucked into essentially a dead-end street inside a forest. It's the perfect location for drinking, drugs, sexual activity, assault, crime, dump a dead body, and if you think I'm being dramatic, there have been dead bodies found at Waranenko and Roe River. If someone falls in the water there, nobody's gonna have a clue because you're tucked away in a cul-de-sac community at a dead end in a little forest. Who's gonna see you? Who do you call for help? It seems that the East Lake ramp would make the county more liable, right? As I mentioned, folks are gonna zigzag under the bridge, and also, the current runs down towards the East Lake, towards the dam, as residents who have kayaked there have attested to us, and it actually makes it a little bit challenging to paddle back. And so the spillway itself introduces another risk of harm should someone go overboard. So our position and our ask of the planning board at this time and the county is if the liability is too big for the county to take on, then it's too big for us as Union County taxpayers, right? Because if something happens, who are they gonna sue? They're gonna come after Clark, they're gonna come after the county, they're coming after the NGITA, they're gonna come after everybody, right? And ultimately that's us, the taxpayers, that are gonna bear that burden. So there should be no boating permitted at this time. Proceed with the rest of the project, but no boating until the county and the NJTA can negotiate some kind of reasonable liability sharing. We want that second boat ramp eliminated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, thank the last speaker for her comments. I'd like just to, it's a public meeting, so technically you could say whatever you want, but the purpose of this meeting is for the county to discuss it with the planning board at an open public meeting, and for the planning board to have some questions answered. If you have questions about the plan, and we all understand why you're here. As your mayor, I totally understand and agree with that lot also. But that's not quite what this is about tonight. What was just said, in a respectful, professional, intelligent manner by Ms. Gonzalez, we cannot do nothing about that. They'll get our feedback when we have the discussion at the end of the night and take it back. We have mirrored a letter to the Turnpike Authority along with the county protesting to having the liability off the bridge, I guess, into the water, to the Union County. It's ridiculous. I think we all agree. So as far as what you don't want and what you do want, it's more about the plan tonight and about the planning board having questions answered. The 26th is for those kind of statements, I would say. You can, we're not stopping you. I don't want to stifle anybody, but I'm just trying to get the appropriate quorum for what we're doing here this evening. I know a bunch of the folks here on Wendell, I see them, I know them very well. I know they don't want it. We're not in favor of it either. And I do agree with the last statement that people are going to boat under that bridge anyway because you can't put a net there because one storm you'll have a dam. So if we can keep our comments more towards the project and not so much the opinion of what we want and don't want, it would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Pete, I do have a question based on some comments that we just heard. What type of clearance is that pedestrian bridge parallel to the parkway going to have underneath it? It's going to be 14 feet high? All right. Excuse me?
It's 14 feet above the water.
Okay. So boats can get under it?
Yes.
Is there any consideration of putting a barrier by the dam? I know that would cause backup.
Yeah, we did omit that from a presentation, Mr. Chairman. There is a barrier proposed. We have It basically looks like a buoy system somewhere about 20, 30 feet from the dam.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to come up and ask questions? Please come forward, state your name and address.
Yeah, my name is Patrick Delaney. I reside at 29 Wendell Place. While I want to preface my conversation here, I did see Mayor Sal's response to the county, but we are here before the planning board because this is our township. We are constituents, and we feel that the planning board has a right to hear exactly what we have to say. So, thank you. We became aware that the New Jersey Turnpike Authority informed Union County that if they wish to proceed with the project that you're now looking at, that they would assume, the county would assume liability for every aspect of the Garden State Parkway structure, including everything above and below the bridge. This unlimited liability imposes a severe, unknown, and unpredictable financial risk, not only on Union County taxpayers, but township taxpayers, because we are part of Union County. We realize that on November 6th, Mayor Sal Bonacorso responded to the New Jersey Turnpike Authority, requesting that they enter into a shared liability agreement, which the county has requested, and which they put a press release out asking residents to respond to support their position. I am not only here tonight as a Clark resident, but I am also a representative of the families that reside in that small community consisting of Wendell Place, Lefferts Lane, Terhune Road, Shetland Drive, and Whitley Terrace, a sanctuary filled with young children. And as was mentioned previously, there's no sidewalks, the streets are narrow, and our children play in the streets because that's what they've been doing for years. Any increase in traffic from people coming down and going to a boat ramp in a narrow situation like that is going to impose a safety issue for our children. In response to these developments, our community has circulated a petition, which I do have with me, opposing the construction of the boat ramp and the parking lot at Wendell Place. That petition has received 70% acceptance by all the residents within those streets that I mentioned. Specifically, 73 households have signed off on it. That petition was circulated less than 3 days ago, and there are people that are still not around to be able to sign it. So we expect that number is going to go up. While we appreciate Mayor Sal's acknowledgement of the impacts on our community in his response, we do not feel that his position totally matches up with ours. We believe it exposes our township residents, the Union County taxpayers, to a financial risk and a significant safety risk for everyone. Just think for a moment, if somebody is out there, they're boating, and they capsize, and they can't swim, not that that doesn't happen, but it does, and they were to drown or get some other significant injury. The first people that are going to get called to respond are going to be Clark Township. If Clark Township doesn't respond timely enough, or if somebody alleges that they didn't respond appropriately, the township could be enjoined in a legal battle at that point in time. The same thing could happen with the county. It's a county facility. The county is not going to be the first to respond. Their earliest response capabilities are probably 20 minutes away. So this is all stuff that needs to be taken into consideration. The county has recommended that the residents reach out to the New Jersey Turnpike Authority about this, and we have done so. To that end, approximately 3 days ago, we launched a change.org petition that has thus far been signed by 232 residents of Union County. That's in less than 3 days. That number goes up constantly as we're reviewing it. Our position in our community is that the liability is too big for the county, it's too big for the taxpayers, it's too big for the township, and that no boating should be permitted on the reservoir. If you remember back some 50 years ago, we even had a resident that lost their lives on the reservoir because people were out playing and parent tried to get to 2 of the kids, was able to grab one and lost the other one. So there is a history there as well. If the county and the NJTPA do not indemnify the Township of Clark and our emergency services, we don't believe this is an acceptable risk for the county, or I should say for the township, to assume. There will be liability. This is a very litigious society that we live in. In summary, this threatens the safety of our neighborhood children. It destroys valuable green space. It destroys the largest old-growth tree canopy along the reservoir. I don't know how many people have looked, but it also threatens the sanctity of the wildlife preserve that we have in Clark. Until this whole project started, I never really appreciated it until I started looking in the sky, and I'm seeing 3 bald eagles. If we start taking away their nesting grounds, we lose key elements of what that whole preserve is all about. And it erases the silent watchers who have protected our community if we attempt to go ahead and go with deforestation plans. As residents, and many of them are here, there's a lot of noise that we're already getting from the Garden State Parkway, from the police firing range. Our only natural buffer is the trees. The minute they start disturbing those, that noise is going to increase tenfold. And some of you actually know where I live on Wendell Place, and I'm more closer to Raritan Road than I am down towards where all of this work is going to take place. It will undoubtedly raise taxes in the county. If they have to assume responsibility, lock, stock, and barrel for the bridge, maintenance costs will need to be covered. That will have to come out of the county. If there is litigation, that will come out of the county. Money doesn't come free, it comes out of our pockets as taxpayers. It imposes unlimited liability, as I mentioned, and it most certainly will increase the liability for the Township of Clark. If this project proceeds, Union County and Clark taxpayers are not being well served. I implore you to take this into consideration, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Laney. This has brought up a question to the county. This would be your largest, this is the largest water body in the county. How many water bodies does the county have and maintain right now? This isn't your first.
I don't have the total number with me tonight, but I'd say there's at least 5 or 6, maybe 7. You got Lake Surprise, you have Warnaco Lake, certainly the reservoir here, and there's a couple of them I remember, but let's say 5 or 6 throughout the county.
Can you tell us what type of incidents have occurred and any frequency of these incidents?
Yeah, that I wouldn't have information like that. We're a consulting engineer to the county, but certainly we get that information for you, Mr. Chairman. We don't have it with us. I do not know of any that I've heard of, but I can't tell you that I've been given that information.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to come forward, please come do so and state your name and address.
Nancy Twaskis, 43 Colonial Drive. I read the transcript from last week's county commissioner meeting, and I said, thank God help is on the way. Residents of Clark and other towns in Union County that have come out are saying on multiple petitions they don't want Lake Apacon, with people floating around on boats in the Clark Reservoir, putting themselves in danger of capsizing, drowning, clowning around riffraff, etc. The Clark Police and Fire Department, I'm sure, don't want to worry about water rescues. Now, we know the New Jersey Transit Authority feels the same way with but with a spin. They don't want the liability. Smart people. I don't want to hear how it's not fair that the county has to bear the burden of the liability. What's not fair is what's being forced on the residents of Clark. The section of the parkway through Clark is what I understand to be the most dangerous and crowded. There are many mornings where accidents are on the news. Can you imagine drivers speeding 60 miles an hour and rubbernecking to see what one commissioner said, 365,000 county residents enjoying the Clark Resi? Boating on both sides of the bridge, what could be more of a distraction? Right now, there are signs all over the Resi, no boating, no boating, no boating. What has changed? We go from no boating to a regatta. Makes no sense. I suggest the boat ramps, boat houses, boat docks go by the way of the ill-conceived train and carousel and clock tower. Then the need for two massive parking lots where trailers can turn around gets eliminated, and maybe the stormwater retention basin gets eliminated. And we get to where Clark residents want just some nature trails and a fishing pier. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susan Bruno. I currently live in Scotch Plains, but I grew up on Wendell Place, so this is very important to me. And I took my time to come here, so I want to talk about the boat ramp, of course, on Wendell Place. So it's about the construction of it, so I think I have a right to speak about it. And I'm not gonna talk too long because you said almost everything I was gonna say, so quite eloquently. So what I do want to say is I read Sal's letter, and I really agree with a lot of it. It's great. And the one risk that you did speak about was, and people are going to say it doesn't happen, but it did happen, the drowning that I was at. Right across the street from my house is where this gentleman went in to rescue two kids that were in the water, and the gentleman died, and one of the children died, and I personally know the son that was saved. So it's very personal to me. And I'll try to skip some things here. So I do have a picture of the kids that care about Wendell Place, that play there, to make it just a little personal, but. So these are the kids. This is how I used to play down there too. There's right over here. I have some other pictures. So, because maybe none of you have even been there. So this is a street coming down Lefferts Lane, and these are narrow streets, as was said. You know, one car could pass through. Lefferts Lane is a bit of a hill, so I'm anticipating, as people are driving now, so incredibly crazy, I'm scared about it. This is Wendell Place at the end of the street, and you would turn to go to the woods. Parts of the woods that you're talking about. And the wooded area, like we were saying, has a lot of wildlife, birds, turtles, eagles, of that nature. So I am concerned about the wildlife and putting in the boat ramp there and taking that neighborhood it's going to be a thoroughfare, because I see it now. And it's going to cause a lot of problems to the neighbors in that neighborhood, because it is such a quiet neighborhood. I'm sorry. I talk so loud I thought you can hear me. So anyway, so I'm just concerned about the streets and that boat ramp there, which it's going to eliminate the trees, eliminate the buffer of the sound, because I grew up there, I know what it's like. And I think that's all I have to say. I just wanted to, just to be heard about it, and to hope that construction of the boat ramp is reconsidered, and considering the people that live there in the area. Thank you.
Good evening. Brian Tull, 116 Dorset Drive, also 4th Ward Councilman, Township of Clark. I'm here tonight to say thank you to the members of the Planning Board for listening to this matter, and to say to Mr. Oatman and Council, thank you for being here, for giving the opportunity to let the residents be heard on this issue. It is a very volatile issue right now in the township, and I'm getting a lot of phone calls, but that's what the nature of an elected official is. I'm going to say this. You had an open mind when you had your meeting in July, which I spoke at. I was the last speaker of that meeting. I'm here tonight. I cannot influence you or say anything to you. I could just ask you to review and give your opinion, because this will be brought back and for final decisions on the November the 26th. I'm tonight just saying the same thing. You did a revision once. You hear there's still opposition to the boat ramp. You can do another revision. Give the people what they're asking for. It's their neighborhood, their backyards. That's a part of the process. There's other alternatives for this site, if you think about it. When I first heard about this, I thought, oh great, they're going to finally use the Hungarian site, which you guys took over. That's the perfect place for a boat ramp. But then all of a sudden, no, you can't go under the bridges. We still have to work with the DOT to see if we can access these bridge zones. If you do, then you're opening up the entire vista for use, not just one little part of it. It doesn't work this way. It's a bad plan. I'm going to go back in historical terms. First of all, this was done in 1907. Esposito Farm, 2001. County came in and saved 13 acres. Thanks to Union County, that farm was saved as a park. But once the proposal was made and the county made a commitment and did an eminent domain on the property, they turned around and they said, we're going to put a children's museum there. 8 acres of the 13 were to be utilized for a structure of a children's museum. You revised that plan, removed it, and went forward with a very noble pocket park, which added to your green acreage, your green space, and did a great job. And that is utilized by all aspects of Union County. Revise this, please, for them. They deserve it. It's a simple plan. This is ridiculous. This you can work with the neighbors over there, and less tree removal. Bad plan, yes. Revise, yes, you can still do it. Why would they be out here tonight? Why would they be out here, guys? They're out here for one reason, a planning board meeting? Usually there's not a lot of major issues. It's very simple. Hear the people. Thank you for your time tonight, and I appreciate you guys giving the opportunity. I know you have to go through a procedure with the planning boards. And to the mayor and BA, thank you for, I'm not grandstanding tonight. That's for January 3rd.
Hello, Claire Labruno, 20 Post Road. Claire Labruno, 20 Post Road. 20. I was wondering if we could have the dimensions of the structure that's going into the forest area. Like the footprint dimensions. Right, it's a 2-story structure. It's 100 by 100. Thank you. I'm sorry, I missed that part. It's 8,500 square feet, the totality of the structure or the footprint.
Both floors.
Right, so half of that then is the footprint. Okay, thank you. I would just like to comment to the board regarding the New Jersey TA issue that's come up, that there's really, to my knowledge, no understanding that even that this plan as is with the objectionable boat ramp would be acceptable by the NJTA, and because it introduces the risk of boating under the bridges. And at this time, it seems that the only path forward would be to eliminate the boating. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Russell Frank. I used to live over on Wendell Place, and no need to repeat a lot of what was said here. And we're talking about the plan, and yes, revisions can make sense. I'm wondering, you know, the boat ramp on Wendell Place, of course, I grew up there, and it would really have a big effect on that area, like it's been said before. I'm wondering, you have the area where the water company was, where the falls are and all of that. There's buildings over there that are obviously not used. There's a lot of space over there. How come I don't even see that section here on the map? Like, is that not important? What's the deal? Why can't that area be used? There's no residents there. It might cost more money, but you wouldn't have to hack down trees because there is no trees there. Has anyone thought about that?
We don't own the land.
That land is not owned? Who owns that?
Middlesex Water Company still owns the land, and we've looked at that. It's not.
And it's not feasible to purchase?
Well, they'd have to want to sell it first. I mean, that's.
Okay, well, I'm saying they don't use it for anything. As far as I could see, they're not taking water out of there.
That's a Middlesex Water Company question.
Oh, that's just another
Excuse me,
thing to look at.
you know, I know they're coming in with a new plan to redo that pump station at the end of Madison Hill Road. It's probably going to be the next 6 months or so. They came in, they met with us about a year ago about rebuilding that. So they own the property and they are going to be upgrading that area.
So they're actually using that?
It's a backup.
Even though that, okay, so even though that water's not being used for, I guess, drinking water, they're using it as a means of moving the water so it's not
Correct.
flooding or anything.
Yeah.
That's just what I was wondering, that there's nothing there. And that's all I have to say. I think everyone else has said quite a lot of things here. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Susanna Savelli at 60 Wendell Place. Thank you very much for letting me get up here and talk for a little bit. I'm not going to repeat some of the things that was said already because I support what was said before. And I do agree that a lot of the projects is good, the dredging, even the Central Lake facilities, I think it's good. I'm not sure why we have to touch Wendell Place. This whole concept about building two boat ramps 500 yards apart from each other, it's totally against any common sense. I mean, it's taxpayers' money we're using. Okay. And the liabilities that it added, as was already mentioned, in addition to the liabilities of the boating and all that, the liabilities of incidences happening at this hidden parking lot behind the woods in a dead-end street, it's real. It's a haven for drugs and drinking, for assaults, for crimes. It's almost a setup for criminal activities because it's out of view, out of the public view. Why would we ever do that? Would you want that next to your house, CME? Right? And why would even if I have all the money in the world, I would never build two boat ramps 500 yards away. If it doesn't make sense to go in a certain part, then you don't go in that certain part. Maybe you don't touch East Lake at all. Instead of, let's build another one 500 yards away to get another half a mile of water. As a matter of fact, I think I went on the Union County website, and within 5 miles of the Clark Reservoir, there are 13 Union County parks, walking paths, fishing capabilities. Echo Lake and Marinenko both have boating facilities. Why are we doing this? In a tiny neighborhood, that's a tiny neighborhood. Like I said, on the main facilities, Madison Hill Road access directly to a boat ramp, you offer Big County Road directly to a boat ramp. I can kind of understand that, but through a neighborhood where it's all residential streets with no sidewalks, narrowed streets, and it's curved, I mean, right now we can't even fit more than one car. You can try to have boat trailers? And also, some technical questions I have for the project. I know you mentioned that is this really for kayaks and rowboats? Why do we need boat ramps then? Usually kayaks and rowboats are kind of just on the ground, pushed into the water. That's one question. I think if you don't have boat ramps, that would be less intrusive in Wendell Place. The other thing is that this map doesn't touch upon the barrier in East Lake. I'm not sure why. Can you explain that? And also this pulley system, I'm not sure what I understand about that.
Pulley system, I'm sorry.
Pulley system you mentioned as a barrier?
No, I think that the buoy system, yes. Buoy system.
Okay, I couldn't hear you.
No problem.
So can you explain that a little further?
Essentially, it's going to look like a buoy that extends from one side of the lake to the other, which will help to mitigate someone in a boat that heads too close to the dam. Won't prevent it necessarily, but it's intended to go through and mitigate that.
Okay, so it won't prevent it, it might help mitigate it.
That's right.
So to me, that's another liability that we have all these lakes that has boating capabilities that Union County has that doesn't have a waterfall attached to it. So why are we touching East Lake that has a waterfall attached to it? Why do you want to even take on that kind of liabilities? It doesn't make sense. It seems like it just creates all these really big risks for people that, for the enjoyment of what? For another half a mile of water that we have so much water already, waterways already in Union County to be enjoyed. Why are we trying to squeeze that last half a mile of waterway when you're incurring all these kind of risks and ruining a neighborhood and destroying more green space? Anyway, thank you very much for letting me speak. Appreciate it.
I am Mark Perlmutter, 32 Garside Place. I actually wasn't going to speak today, but I do have a couple questions. One of which is pertaining to wetlands. Are wetlands to be disturbed by this project, and exactly how many square footage of wetlands are to be impacted by this project?
There is disturbance to wetlands. Right now, I don't have the exact number in front of me. I can get that for you. We have not received our approval for wetlands yet. We have an application at NJDEP. Our disturbance, though, is within allowable limits based upon the regulations.
Is there any plans to offset the wetland disturbance elsewhere by restoring wetland conditions that were being removed from this body of water to another part of the body of water?
The bulk of the wetlands disturbance is from the lake dredging. So it's not as if we're disturbing wetlands uplands.
So it's not disturbance, it's removal of wetlands.
That's correct.
Okay, so
They
just
have
to
a
be clear,
wetland.
from an ethical standpoint of view, we have a green space, we have a wildlife corridor here, we have water, we have ecological purposes. We're not impacting wetlands, we're straight up removing wetlands, but within the allowable limits.
The bulk of the wetlands disturbance is along the lakes. In order to dredge, we have to excavate along the edge of the lakes and have access into it.
Okay, what kind of environmental or ecological impact assessment was done that would explain to the both the animals and the plants that are being impacted by this project?
The DEP applications are probably about a foot high with the amount of reports that we've had to do.
Okay. Are they available to the public?
I'm sorry?
Are they available to the public?
In fact, they are, yes, certainly.
Okay.
Yeah. Fish
Are
and
there
wildlife.
any endangered species or vulnerable species, vernal pools, any amphibians that are going to be impacted by this project that were identified through ecological or environmental assessments?
We have an application into Fish and Wildlife at this point because of the dredging operation. As any dredging project, there is impacts to various potential fish and aquatic life along the edge of the lake. That's unfortunate, but part of the operation of dredging. The dredging, as you know, is slowly but surely taking over the lakes because of the fact that it is silting them in. The West Lake in particular, you can see that the peninsula that's grown out of from Featherbed Lane is slowly but surely filling the lake, and that's what will happen ultimately if these aren't dredged.
But it also contains, the conditions for wildlife to be there. You go there, there's wild turkeys, there are deer that come over from the train track, foxes. A lot of animals that don't have an opportunity to flourish in Clark are in that area. So that's kind of a natural occurrence, and what we're proposing here is not a natural occurrence. So basically what I was asking, and I'm not getting a correct answer, has there been any specific study indicating what type of plants and animals are in this project's scope of work, and what the impact to them are, so we know if there's any vulnerable species, if they're being impacted or not, specifically?
Those issues were addressed with our applications to DEP.
Okay, all right, so to the DEP, but not to the general public. Okay, all right, next question is just basically tree removal. What is the plan to offset per tree? Are you going to be putting back the same amount of number of trees that you take out? For example, when they did this type of a project in South Orange, which I am from West Orange, and this actually touches up against West Orange. The Essex County was required by the DEP to plant 1 tree for each tree that they removed as part of their boating project. So I wanted to know if there's going to be a similar offset required by the DEP or voluntarily done by Union County to offset the amount of trees that are removed from this project and return them.
The county has requested that we replace it 2-to-1, not just 1-to-1, but 2-to-1.
Okay, is it all going to be within close proximity to the area, or is it going to be distributed elsewhere outside of this location?
We are reforesting areas to improve the buffers, especially along our disturbed areas. There's some sections in the center area of our access into the where the boathouse is going to be. That's going to be reforested, and we're basically looking at areas where the trees have been thinned for whatever reason. This site was totally disturbed for a wastewater project many, many years ago, which if you're on site, you know, and there's been a lot of deposition of soils and mounds and debris out there, and part of our project will go through and restore that.
Okay. Well, I hereby just request that everyone in the planning board...
Mr. Chairman, we're really getting far beyond the planning board's purview here. I understand the questioner has questions about the environmental aspects, and those are really part of the DEP application. We'll be happy to address these at another time, but I really think he's had a lot of latitude. I think it goes beyond the purview of this board, and I would ask the chairman to either have the questioner deal with matters before this board or question us at another time. Thank you.
Are you at a point where you're finished with your questions, or?
Yes, essentially I'm finished with my questions regarding the wetlands and the ecological impacts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Gribb, 7 Crescent Parkway. I'll say I like the project the way it is now, with the exception of Wendell Place. Not going to talk about Wendell Place. You guys heard about that enough. What I'm going to ask about is, we're going to dredge this. I plan on living here the rest of my life, 25, 44, 50, maybe 60 more years, who knows. What are we doing to mitigate this needing to be dredged again in X number of years? Like, is there anything in this project that's being done to say aerate so that stuff moves, so that we extend the life of the dredge, so that whatever number of years, I'm not like looking at a tax bill that's through the roof because we don't have a grant coming in that's $40 million, because by then it's going to be $80, $100 million. So just curious on that.
The silting of the reservoir has taken many, many years. Upstream disturbance of soils is what causes this. So, as you know, since in the last 30 years or so, there's been very stringent requirements on soil erosion, and so that we do not anticipate the major deposition that you have. Up at the headwaters, we have looked at methods to control that silting. For obvious reasons, we don't want to see this get silted in our time. So the county has, as one of their future improvements, the plan to install some type of a silt barrier up at the headwaters. is not being done with this phase, mostly because of necessary DEP approvals and limitations on dollars. But once this is completely clean, the intent is to try and, obviously, as you said, not let it happen again. So there's going to be upstream controls, which are in from soil erosion, sediment control requirements at the federal government and the state, but also the county's going to do their best to try and minimize it. The headwater's a great spot to try and collect it and not let it run downstream.
The headwaters, I remember 10 years ago or 30 years ago when I used to play there as a kid, there was no island there.
That's right.
There's nothing there, so yeah, so that would be good.
That's the place to
Okay.
try and catch it. That's right.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
Anyone else wish to come forward? Please do so. Give us your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Tailari Zamer. I live at 44 Wendell Place. I'm here because I've only heard the term conservation easement mentioned once. And my question to perhaps the attorney present today is what has been discussed with the NJ Conservation Foundation as far as whether this plan as it is presented today has all been approved to move forward.
The Conservation Foundation has signed the application.
As it is presented today, so the structures that are on the property here. So my continued question is the proposed boating house. Is that also on the easement property or is that on the St. Agnes property?
Proposed boat storage facility sits on the county's property, not in NJCF.
So my question is, I did review the easement. The easement is filed with Union County as part of the deed document, so it's open to the public and it's available. And I urge the planning committee to review that as well. I think the terms of the easements are applicable and they apply today. And there are conservation values which are defined in there. And I don't believe that the plan as it is presented meets with those conservation values, as I interpret it. But again, the New Jersey Conservation Society may have had their say on it. The only other point I did want to bring, did you have a comment? Okay, is that I noticed when I Googled boating activities in Union County, 2 properties showed up. It was the Warrenanko Park and also Echo Lake. Echo Lake for the past 2 years, 23 and 24, has not been in operation. And I just suspect that it's not commercially feasible. I don't know the answer. And I also noticed that Warrenanko Park operates Friday, Saturday, Sunday with very limited hours. So you're putting a piece of boating activity when there are 2 other in Union County. So I don't know what the actual need or usage are in the other lakeside properties, but I don't know whether it's appropriate for this property here in Union or in Clark Township. So I do urge the planning committee to review the easement. It's a public document, and I think it really speaks to the reason why we have the easement in the first place. The easement was developed when the reservoir was going to be drained, so there was a lot of public outpouring as to preserve it, and that's what was done. So I'm sort of upset that we're back here when, preservation and environmental concerns should take precedence for this piece of property. I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Good evening, Ellen Mulligan, 46 Wendell Place in Clark. I also live on Wendell Place, and I oppose the boat ramp for all the reasons that everybody spoke before. I have a couple questions. In August 26th, the county put out a press release, and they mentioned the plan was to use kayaks, canoes, and duck boats. what kind of duck boats do you mean? Like a tourist duck boat or a hunting duck boat? That's one question. The barrier by the dam, will that be, you said buoy system, will it be something going, like connecting all the buoys together that might obstruct the flow? I want to save the trees. Those trees are beautiful. They're beautiful in the winter, they're beautiful in the spring, they're beautiful in the fall. The boathouse, 8,500 square feet is a big building. They talked about the great room. What's the purpose of the great room on the second floor? Will that be something that's going to be rented out, like a catering hall? I mean, that's potentially 4,000 square foot on the second floor. That's quite huge. And the pedestrian bridge going alongside the parkway. It's going to be 14 foot high. What's the width on it? And will motor vehicles be able to go across that as well? And please consider revising this plan. Thank you very much.
Does anyone else wish to come forward? Seeing no one. Up.
All this conversation made me realize I forgot 2 questions, and I'll be much shorter this time.
Please state your name and address again.
Diana Gonzalez, 140 Stemmer. My first question is, my understanding is the plan was revised to make the walking paths crushed stone and permeable. I didn't hear that tonight. Is that still the plan? That's correct. Okay, great. And my other question was, part of our counter proposal included aeration, to Bill's point, right? So we don't end up back where we are. And it was communicated to me that a biological agent or process like clean flow or biosys was intended to be used and was being piloted elsewhere in the county, but I don't hear that being discussed today. Is that in or out?
The biological treatment for East Lake is not in this project, future project. Our analysis shows that that lake is at least 5 feet pretty much throughout the entire lake at this time.
So the East Lake is not going to have any kind of treatment. It's going to continue to be green? It's going to stay green like it is now? It's not going to be addressed?
I'm not sure what you mean green.
The algae.
The algae problem, yes, I understand that, but that's not part of the improvement at this point. Future.
So I wasn't even asking about the East Lake. I thought that was in. This is like new information that it's out. So there's no plan to do any kind of aeration or ongoing treatment of the reservoir after it's dredged?
Not in this phase of the project. The dredging is a significant cost, so that it is occupying a good portion of the budget. So that, but there are, concept plans to go through and do that in the future.
Okay. Well, that is disappointing. I understand that there's always budgetary constraints or whatever. One of the themes throughout all of the months that residents have been complaining about is the ongoing maintenance of parks, that Union County creates new parks, but they don't necessarily maintain them very well. So to me, this is just like another indication that there's not forethought about maintenance. That's all. Thank you.
Seeing no one else come forward, Counselor, would you like to close out?
No, Chairman, I just want to thank yourself and the board members for being here tonight and for allowing us to make this presentation. And that's all we have. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. All right. I'd like a motion to open the meeting to the public to discuss any topics.
Other than
the reservoir. Yes, other than the reservoir.
motion.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you, Joe. Anyone like to come forward? Seeing no one come forward, a motion to close the public session.
Motion.
Thank you, Lance.
Second.
Thank you, Joe. Any new business to discuss? Any old business? Our next meeting is December 5th. I'd like a motion to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, Lance.
Second.
Thank you, Joe. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming out.